Time has gone 8 minutes after the hour, 6 o'clock, and it's a very good evening to you and welcome to it, our special broadcast. And it's brought to you courtesy of Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS, together with the National Treasury, especially the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer. And tonight we are joined by regular guests who've been here for the past 3 weeks. In fact, this evening's show is going to be the last one that we're having in this series of programs. And we're talking about all things that's got to do with the buying of goods and services by government. And this is the continuation of last week's program, and we're going to be wrapping it up this evening. But before we do that, let me welcome once again guests in the studio. It's Rakgadi Motseto. She's the Chief Director, Stakeholders and Client Support. It's a very good evening to you, Rakgadi.
Good evening, Karabo. Good evening to the listeners.
As well as Meros Matlaole, Director of the Supply Chain Management, Governance, Monitoring and Compliance, both of them coming from the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer. It's a very good evening to you, Meros.
Good evening, Karabo.
There we go. That was Venda, right?
No.
What, I know that.
Oh, that was Tonga. Oh, Nablawul. Oh, Nablawula. No. But we're going to do it differently this evening. We're going to be doing it in English. So I want to ask you to be part of this program. You can call us in. Our number is very easy. It's 0800 142 446. That's 0800 142 446. It's a toll-free number. If you're going to be calling from a landline, we'll be happy to hear from you. We're going to be talking about the methods of buying that we've started last week, and it's a continuation this evening, as well as a wrap-up thereof. So please be part of this show this evening by calling in or sending your comments 0800 142 446. Before we do that, do you want us, let's recap a little bit in terms of how we started 3 weeks ago, the middle of the week, the second week, the third week, and bringing us here. Would you like to, not in detail, you don't have to worry about being detailed, but some of the highlights, maybe let's put it that way, some of the highlights of the series of programs, Rakgadi?
It's a long chain now. It's a very long chain. We started talking about the scams and the mistakes that most suppliers do or when they fall for scams, and we spoke about the CSD, how does it tie to the method of buying, which is requisition for quotations, as well as transversal methods of buying and limited bidding. And last week we spoke about the 3 bid committees that take that deal with the process of competitive bidding.
There we go. So just summarizing the past 3 weeks there in a nutshell. 11 after 6 o'clock. If you've just jumped in and opened your radio right now, well, like I said earlier on, this is a special broadcast, and it's brought to you courtesy of Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS, together with the National Treasury. Rakgadi Motseto in the studio, as well as Rose Matlaole in the studio. We're going to be wrapping the series of program up this evening. So there we go. Let's jump into the matters of things. I would like us to kick off with this one here, the OCB, if you want to put an abbreviation to it. That is the open competitive bidding. Do you want to start with that? Let's do that.
Okay, last week we indicated that competitive bidding, it's tenders actually in terms that is known by all the suppliers, is where the tenders are advertised in the e-tender portal. It's a requirement now that a institution should advertise in the e-tender portal for 21 days. So it's open for everyone who want to participate in that tender. It's advertised for 21 days. I indicated that is the minimum days. And when the tender closed, it has got 3 bid committees. The specification committee is the committee that compiles the terms of reference before the tender is advertised. When the tender closed, it needs to be evaluated by the bid evaluation committee, and then the bid evaluation committee submit recommendations to the bid adjudication committee. So the Gauteng province started the open tender process that suppliers can participate. It means when they want want to see how their tenders are evaluated, they can go there and sit and, observe that. So we encourage suppliers to participate in that process, but they need to understand the processes, because if they don't understand, then there'll be a problem. Even if they go there and participate, they won't understand anything. So they need to understand how these processes unfold. So the bid adjudication committee, last week we indicated that, okay, the bid evaluation committee evaluate the tender on the evaluation criteria that is published, that is advertised. What is in the tender, they cannot change anything. So they submit the recommendation to the bid adjudication committee. The bid adjudication committee ensures that the criteria that was advertised was used to evaluate this tender, and that the scores were correct and fair. So when the bidders were disqualified and the disqualification were fair.
Right.
Yes.
All right. 0800 142 446. Let me open the telephone lines already, seeing that this is the last show, and I would like you to get more time to call in and engage with our guests this evening. So 0800 142 446. Okay.
The one thing that I wanted to add to the competitive bidding, that is the tender process, is we said last week that most suppliers, they don't understand the ins and outs of this process. As a result, they tend to think, after the BAC has made a recommendation, they tend to think that somebody who has had sight of the information is performing miracles for them. That's where somebody will call and says, the tender is short of points, so I can make sure you get it. So it is important that they understand the process, so that when somebody says, give me a such and such amount of money, then they would know that probably the tender is mine. So even if they don't pay the bribe and they don't get the tender, they can still go back and ask, where did I go wrong in the process? And they have a right to do that. And we share the information with them. This is where you missed it, so that in future they can correct it, instead of paying for something that they might not even get at the end of the day.
Right. All right, 15 after 6 o'clock. Let's take one caller quickly who's holding on at the moment. I'm chatting to Puti from Muleji FM. Puti, good evening to you. Thank you so much for calling. If you don't mind, Meputi, you're not comfortable, you're more than welcome. But if you can, maybe if I may ask you to do that, to speak in English, please, for the benefit of the listenership for this evening.
Okay, I want to talk to a question based on central supplier database.
All right, you want to ask about the CSD, the Central Supplier Database?
Yes.
Okay, what is your question on that?
I want to check if I'm the supplier based in Limpopo, if it's possible for the Minister of Treasury maybe to request my quotation while there is a tender, maybe in Johannesburg or in Pretoria.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Puti, for your question. We'll definitely answer that. 0800 142 446. That's 0800 142 446. Maybe let's answer that one before we move on.
Okay, says Puti, the reason why we want suppliers to do business in their provinces is it won't make sense for us to ask you to come and do catering in Gauteng, and you go carrying the trucks and everything coming to Gauteng. So the overheads are going to be more. So it is better if you do business in Limpopo. However, if the tender is big enough, you can submit a tender in Gauteng. But with RFQs in particular, where it's less than 500,000, it wouldn't make sense for you to travel from Limpopo to come and deliver something that is worth 30,000 in Gauteng.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
To add on that, with competitive bidding, it is open for everyone. If the tender is advertised in Cape Town, you can still participate in that tender.
But what would the trick with that be in terms of distance? Is it what you've just alluded to just now?
Yeah, the thing is, you need to look. That is why the mode of buying RFQ, it's for cheaper kind of commodities.
Goods,
You want them immediately.
Right.
So you don't want somebody who's far away, who's going to drive for an hour to come and deliver something that you can get nearer because you need it urgently. However, with tenders, if a tender is out, it's on the e-tenders portal, and you feel you can do the job and you can cover the cost of moving from Limpopo to that area because the tender pays more. You are more than welcome to do it.
All right. 0800 142 446 0800 142 446. That is our number here in the studio. If you want to engage us, would like to hear from you. Any comments or questions are welcome for this evening. Now, the both of you are very passionate about something.
Yes.
You are very passionate about the importance of understanding these processes.
Yes.
Why?
When you grow up, I grew up in a location, and it's difficult to get out of certain situations. And when you engage with suppliers, especially emerging suppliers, they don't do a lot of research, and we want them to understand who we are as government and take those opportunities and make them work. Because it doesn't matter, we can put policies out now like the revised regulations. If they don't understand what that means for them, we're just going to have a policy that doesn't work for them. That is why I don't know. There's a program where they say you date my family or something, where they assess you. You come in, they check you out.
Yeah.
So we're just asking suppliers, just date your government. Just go into our website, read about who we are, so that when you start doing business with us, it's easier, it's simpler. You know who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Because if you don't understand, you'll get all these issues where they say, I'll give you a tender, you must pay me this much, we'll sell you a tender. They need to make time to read. They need to make time to understand who we are as government.
Right. Tsepo from Klerksdorp. Good evening to you, Tsepo. Tsepo in Klerksdorp.
Dumelang le kae?
Re le kae ntate?
Re teng ba golo ka mo bo ma dumelang ka fela.
Hi, Tsepo.
Ba golo ke tete ka bole bona. I have got two questions.
Yeah.
The first question, my first question is, do the government consider the local businesses before maybe considering the other businesses, maybe on other provinces? Maybe like, for instance, I'm in Treasury. When I'm in Treasury, there is a tender in Treasury. When they open the tender for something, they need to do something in Treasury. Do they consider the local businesses before maybe they will reconsider the others on the other provinces?
Okay.
All right.
That question.
All right. We heard that. Is that the only question that you have, Tsepo?
And the other question, number two, I don't know this one, how I'm going to put it, but I don't know. In this one in particular, very liquidity, I can't say it. What I can do, is it selfish to government, but like maybe one person, I believe, but tender a province for the goal, maybe relevated the goal for one person to invade all schools in the province, all schools around the Northwest province. Is it until I think the government is a whole Kata, maybe by a little shadow, or now what they don't go, how province, I don't know how I would send the last one.
Okay.
All right, Tsepo, thank you so much for that. We'll definitely answer that one there. So 0800 142 446. So that's 0800 142 446. You want to jump into those questions?
Okay. Tsepo, we were planning to talk about the revised regulations. What the revised regulations are saying right now is that we need to prioritize businesses in townships, in rural areas, and those businesses should be owned 51% by the youth. Who happen to be black, of course, people living with disabilities, women who are black people. So we're trying to keep the business within the location, so that when they issue a tender, they need to indicate that this tender is meant for people in this area, so that you get the benefits as well. So if you can look at the revised PPPA in future, that when they issue tenders, they need to look at the empowerment. However, we cannot say they should give the tender to local people for the skills that are not in that local municipality. They need to be the skill that they require for that particular tender. The second question is about participation in tenders. I hope I got it right. Competition is open to everybody. Let me put it that way. If the tender goes out and somebody was awarded a tender previously, they can still compete. There's no law that says they can't do that. However, if you have doubts in terms of how this tender was awarded, you have the right to go and ask, why is it this person get all the tenders? Maybe the process was not done properly, or the person deserves to be given that work.
Mm-hmm. All right. 0800 142 446. 0800 142 446. With this last one, with this last question from Sep, I think I got it in a different way, but it can add up to be his third question if you want to.
Okay.
I think I captured it. I think Sepo, I heard him say that if somebody, is it possible for somebody to get a tender, say for instance, hypothetically speaking, of mowing the lawn in schools,
Yes.
but one gets that tender, say in Gauteng, with all the schools in Gauteng. Is it possible for one to be able to do that?
It is possible. It depends on how the tender was advertised.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, if they're saying they're going to have a panel, which is a different thing, they would go through the process as well. They will be evaluated.
Right.
Then they get rotated in terms of doing the work. The second part would be if the contract was advertised for 3 years and they identify the schools where the contractor that will be appointed will be mowing the lawns, then that contractor will go and render a service at those schools for 3 years. But they need to have the capacity. They need to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So it's twofold. It's either it's a panel or it's a contract that is running for 3 years or more. But it should have been stated in the tender that the tender is for mowing these schools.
Right. Should be in the tender, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It will be in the tender that we want 1% for 3 years who can take care of these schools.
Right.
Yeah.
Rose?
Yes, to add on that, sometimes when the tender is advertised, they will indicate that we're going to appoint a service provider per region, so they can appoint more service providers, maybe allocate schools in a region.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but sometimes they'll indicate that we want a service provider to mow the schools in Gauteng.
A number of schools,
in
yeah.
that case, it will be one service provider.
But those schools should be listed.
Yes, they're going to be listed, yes.
Okay. 25 after 6 o'clock from Mulechi again. I think Mulechi is doing very well this evening, and thank you so much to the management of Mulechi FM out in Limpopo. I think my colleague Musoto Stone will be very happy to hear that you guys are participating this evening. Thank you so much. Here's Sophie, and after that one, we're going to be taking France. Let's take Sophie first. Sophie?
Hello.
Good evening to you, Mewak.
How are you?
Ronald Kai.
Company.
Okay.
Mo ke na le company. Putsiswe ke nyoko e buisha gore ke phela ke kry-a a sort of code. Ba re ke code ke romela a quotation. Maybe ba re romela quotation ya o romela ya o isha marotho kae ke provide marotho kae. Go ro lebelela quotation lo tomorrow wa nyakisi. O kry le it's not the right quotation. It's just a scam. Re dirang go netefatsa gore batho ba se ka wela ka ramathata.
Or meaning
Meaning
that the RFQ that was sent, it was not sent actually from government. It might just be somebody else.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Sophie will definitely answer your question there. Aringa Matala. Good evening to you, France. France Ramatala.
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm good, and you, sir?
Okay, thank you. I would like to know this thing, because you know, as they say, there's too many ways to skin the cat.
Yep.
Now, when we go for quotation, there are some other quotations that we are buying. So what do we do about this? Because it's letting us down. And wherever the quotation is get without paying for it, some stuff there, they are not there. But that one that you are buying, there is a stuff that's there and is sort of on the other quotations. So what do we do about this? And the second thing is, it was just something that should be amended. If you are having a tender, for this thing actually to rotate to the other people that are not having that don't receive any tenders. So whoever has got a tender, let him work until he finish up his tender, and then until he finish up his job, then he can enter another thing. Because when you advertise 10 tenders, he's there. That is why the other tenders are not getting finished, because they are making the catch-ups. You know what I'm trying to say?
All right. Franz, stay on the line for me for just a bit, because you mentioned something that had all our ears standing up there.
Yes.
You were talking about purchased quotations that you.
Let me just say it's a stationery. I must go to the stationer people to go and give me a quotation. But most of them, you are paying about 200 to 250. So that he starts giving us a certain way that this thing has got a connection where the tender is coming from, and that's coming from there, and that shop has got that.
Okay.
And you don't pay for that, you go somewhere else. There are some other cartridges that are not there.
All right.
Where you are going, but they are there where you expect, where they are letting you to pay for the quotation.
All right. Did we capture that?
Yeah,
okay. Before we answer, let's. Okay.
Another thing.
Yeah.
And another thing, these companies that are giving us a quotation, sometimes you go there, they say we can't give you a quotation because they've entered that tender. They can't able to be. So this thing is starting to rotate to those people who have got businesses. How is it if maybe you can say whoever is running the stationery or bakery, he doesn't have to enter that tender because we are buying from them.
All right. Franz, thank you so much. We've captured that question. Thank you for calling in. We really appreciate it. Let's move on and go to Cape Town. I was in Cape Town about a week ago. Let's speak to Mr. Benjamin. Benjamin?
Oh, hello, how are you?
I'm good, and you, sir?
Very well, alhamdulillah. You know, this is my little tune that I always say, alhamdulillah, all praise and thanks goes to Allah who has given us opportunity to listen and to talk and to interact. You know, this tender business is a hell of a business. You know why? Because at the end of the day, it's better sometimes to have somebody that does the tenders that is in the area. Because you know what is going on with all the tender business? Because sometimes before the building or before the grass is cut or before everything is blown away, the tender has run away. You see, this is very, very important, my friend. And then because, you know, we're losing all the time.
Yeah.
That
True.
is the worst part of, you got to know your tender, you got to scrutinize your tender, and your tenders, you know, because you know what is happening in our country at the moment. I mean, and then also if you're a tender to build somebody some place, how can you tender and build some place, and then you pile up a lot of bricks, you plaster it up, then you find out it's the wrong bricks, and then you have to chop the bricks off again, and then one lorry just come and take the bricks away. You don't know where it goes. Today you got to scrutinize all these things because it's been wasting and it's also not helping the poor.
Thank you so much, Benjamin, for your input. Where are you calling? Which part of Cape Town are you calling from?
I'm calling from Bonteville, Cape Town.
Have you seen some of that? Have you seen some of that stuff happening around your area?
Yes, I've seen a lot happening, especially in District 6 at the moment, where they are building the new houses there. I mean, they've been building, and then they chop off the wall. They say it's the wrong bricks they're using. What is going on? I mean, what is this tenders all about?
All right. Thank you so much. Benjamin, we need people like you who can call in and say, look, I might not be asking a question, but I can tell you one or two things that I think you guys must do. Thank you for your input. I really appreciate it.
You keep well and take care.
Thank you so much. There we go. 29 minutes just before 7 o'clock, 0800 142 446. It might be a question, it might be a comment that you are having this evening. You're more than welcome to bring it through. We'd gladly accept it. Ladies, those are the questions. Fire on.
Which one are we starting with? Okay.
What
Let me start with Benjamin now that I remember. Mr. Benjamin, thank you so much for the compliments and the information that you just shared with us. The challenge is that we have practitioners who are not so good with supply chain. Remember, in the past, supply chain was that area of work where if you can't do anything else, they just dump you there. So some of them, they don't know how to apply their mind and look at this as I need to get value for money out of this thing because I'm using people's taxes. So they just buy the wrong things. They don't put an effort into putting the specifications together. As a result, you end up with those mistakes. Also, on the other hand, you have suppliers who just get into a tender. They don't look at the SLA. They don't look how they need to deliver. They don't look at the type of requirements that come with that tender. So you have two people talking to one another about something that the two of them don't
even understand. Yeah.
So it costs money. It does cost money at the end of the day.
Okay.
Okay, let me respond to Sophie's question. Also, if you have a request for quotation, le from the department, no more more request for quotation, because sometimes when you call the number, they'll respond and only to find that, okay, you are not calling the department. Le information ka website ya bona, number ya department e quotation e tswa boyona, le fonele that number, or you can get information from their website and inquire if really the request for quotation is from the department, because this came on a dite nerwa ka tsona ka first week ya rena ya this campaign. About France, selling of quotations is not from government. I thought you were saying government sell quotation, because we don't sell quotations. Government is not allowed to sell quotations. But then if the supplier who's supplying you wants to charge you for the quotation that they're issuing, then it's something else. Because if they are manufacturers, yes, they can do anything. The second thing is the second question is competitive bidding process, where you indicated that if a supplier is a manufacturer and they are still bidding and they say to you that we cannot give you a quotation because we are also going to participate in the quotation or whatever the tender, they are allowed. They are not discriminated because it's competitive bidding. Our constitution allows them to participate. If the tender is advertised, it's open for anyone, whether you're a manufacturer or not. But fortunately, the triple PFA that is coming, at least they will be eliminated, because it will specify that, okay, this tender is specifically for these designated suppliers. Yes, but currently we cannot discriminate. They have to participate if they want to, and they are right if they don't want to give you a quotation, because if they give you a quotation and they participate, they will also be disqualified, because we call that the Competition Act. They can't. Does not allow them.
When France is talking about paying for the quotation, if you go to the bank, for instance, as a person, you ask for your statements, you pay for them.
They charge you.
They charge you for those things. I think the suppliers are looking at recovering their administrative costs, because somebody has to sit and look at what you want. It's time, it's money. They print it out for you, they give it to you. You don't get appointed. You come back again for almost the same issue. So I think they're trying to recover the administrative cost, something that it is outside the boundaries of government.
What about an idea that France has? And he says, look, let's consider this rotation aspect to come in a bit more frequently. He says, if you've got a tender, why can't we put regulations where you only can get one tender at a time? It does not matter if you qualify for the others, but if you've got a tender, stick with that tender until the very end, so that if other tenders come, you don't apply for them, you don't bid for them, but those tenders can be, bidding can take place by other people. What about that idea? Do you think it's something that can work?
Rotation happens under requisition for quotations. That one is mandatory, that they need to be rotated. But when it comes to open competitive bidding, the Constitution does allow for competitiveness, so you cannot exclude people out of competition. If they can afford to submit a bid and deliver, they have the capacity, they can do the work, they meet the requirements, we cannot stop them from doing business, although we do stop government employees from doing business because we pay them. They are
Right.
within government. But for somebody who's outside government, it's a bit difficult to say you can't do this, you can't do that.
This thing, your competition is really hectic. You want to add something there?
Yes. Sometimes you find that, okay, the Department of Public Works advertise a tender and the Department of Health advertise another tender. You know, the Department of Health run their own processes. They don't know that, okay, there's a tender that was advertised by Health and this service provider is participating in that one. So sometimes you find that, okay, the same service provider is awarded the tender at Health and Public Works and Education at the same time, because these departments, they do their own, you know, processes. Yes.
I'm all for India war, definitely. Yeah, it's all about competition at the end of the day. No matter, I mean, there's a competition that's taking place in my own house every morning before we leave for work. The TV will be on and somebody will be watching cartoons, and I would get into the living room and she would run quickly. We've got this thing where we compete who's going to switch off the TV first. Obviously, it's my trick. She doesn't know. It's my trick to get her to the car. But who's going to switch the TV off first? And it's always her winning. And she tells me, Nagia Ropa, when I switch it with the remote. But those are days where I want to get to work and it's late. So competition is everywhere, even in households. 0800 142 446. Let's take Ndanse Malachi. Ndanse Olecha Ale Mulechi. O Telediche Mulechi FM. Ndanse, if I may ask you, if you're comfortable to ask your question in English, I'd really appreciate it. But you're more than welcome to speak in your language.
Okay, Ndate. Nna ke be ke rata go botsisa gore a ke na le company ya bereka registered, but I heard somebody told me that if I want to work with the government, I have to have this tax clearance. To be tax clearance. Is it possible for me to work or have a tender in the government side if I don't have that tax clearance?
Thank you so much. Maybe that's it. It might be a question. It might be something that we want to follow up on. I get the issues that tax clearance they got to do with or the turnover of your company.
Yes.
Would you like to maybe engage in that?
And
Come again, sir? Yeah, but no.
You said you've done business already with government.
No, he hasn't.
No.
You haven't?
No.
Oh, okay. No, you need to be tax compliant, that they does say. When you get work from government, when you are paid, you need to go to SARS. Because even before you start working, you need to go to SARS. You need to be cleared, because SARS, when you start working, if you are not owing anything, if you don't have to pay anything, they'll clear you. So before you do business with government, we no longer need the tax clearance certificate, but you need to be tax compliant, and you need to register with the Central Supplier Database. And in the Central Supplier Database, will be linked with SARS. So SARS will indicate that, okay, you are tax compliant because you don't owe them anything, you were not paid money, and you failed to pay them.
Right.
Okay. Oh, yeah, Mama.
I get a tax with tax. Yes, SARS. You need to be within a certain income bracket, right?
Yeah.
So still you have to register, so that how fit to a point where you reach a bracket where you need to pay tax, then you are able to pay tax. You can still go to SARS. Just ask them, how do you do it if you haven't generated any income? But I think they give you a reference number that will clarify whether you are registered with them or not.
All right. Will it be possible for me so that I can get a tender or do a tendering if I don't have somebody in the company who is disabled? Because somebody told me that I have to cover all the kind of people.
No. It's not like that.
Yeah.
It's not like that. I get when you do your BEE certificate, it takes into account those levels. If you have black people, it will give you certain points. If you have disabled people, it will give you certain points. So you don't have to go and take the Roleka Mokacha Limpopo and use them for business.
Okay, thank you so much, Mama.
Thank you so much, Dasi Malachi, calling, listening via Mulechi FM. As I said, Mulechi must get an award for this evening. They've got a lot of listeners listening in. Let's go to Lebo, all the way from Eliwell North. Lebo Ale Pirate. Lebza, Eliwell North. Takalani FM. All right, let's move on. I think this is Lebo again. Olebukeng from Kimberley this time. Olebukeng.
Hello.
Yeah, what is your question, Olebukeng?
My question is,
in most cases, the Treasury. Understand in terms of educating regarding the tender process. For example, more northern Cape, your places like your Kuruman. Besides maybe this shows what is the Treasury doing in terms of educating that the tender process. And another question, why did the Treasury the companies sell revenue? What about the companies sell
Thank you so much. Ki Uleboheng calling all the way from Kimberley in the Northern Cape. Thank you so much. I'm being told that Lebo is back. Lebo, Eliwal North from Takalani Community Radio. What a pirate. Lebs? Oh, okay. Wabale hadda. Wabale. Yeah.
Ke lebuile ho menane for godina kaofela e re fueng ke Treasury ore ho rutwe batho ba tsa tsebeng le ba tshwanang le rona ba. I can even tell you now, I just got something from you, KB, requesting for a quotation. I did that. It is in front of me, and I must pray for that tomorrow. When you are checking, you must find out that my things are correct. I don't have a problem, because really, why am I saying that? After saying my problem to GCIS, there was a lady who made a follow-up to me, and she called. She was in a good manner. She was talking nicely. And hey, but Bandadi Jova, I get even carrying renegades. Who go to one tower, 20 bata long, you honor Rieta Hale. So now, Kirahad, Yavikibuan, Kirahad Mutuni Gibualen. I'm very pleased for that. Because you are talking to me and trying to find out exactly what is it that she can help. And now I hope to talk of Alexa Magatila KB, Kivatalebo Hulu, Ubom never to Batu, but what of mana program I get to be carrying about 4 seats. Impa, keep on trying, Baba to Balisesa, Kamoya Mute, Kilebu KB, what a nice program in
that level. Ikikopa onkeletse mohau hanyane.
Yeah.
O founele GCIS, o check hore RFQ we thotseng ke yona na.
Ai but
please keep on checking and come back to me. Until now, I hope so one.
No, Skawara Lips. We'll do the second process in that RFQ. What we do is checking the statuses of everybody that we've sent the RFQs to. So Roye Tabra Lips and get our life to Disiam.
Thanks, Bishop.
There we go. No, but which is true. I mean, he must check. He can say, it's coming from somebody else, you know? He must check. Lebs, call that number. If it's in Nagarabag, then you know you've got a problem. So thank you so much. Lebohang Kasipe there from Eliwal North, Takalani Community Radio. We thank you. Let's speak to Tabiso from, can you believe it? Tabiso from Muleji. Is there an award that we can give to Muleji, gentlemen, at the end of the show? We'll try to find out what that award is. Yeah, man. Tabiso from Muleji FM. Relocha. Anga bona le se se ngebe re hlabile mohoshi.
Awankebele kole ka nnete.
Yeah.
Nna puisho ya ka o bagolo ba ka form ya.
Hey, you see. All right, no problem. We'll try to call him back. No worries. Okay, let's go to Muleji again. Okay, definitely hands down Muleji gets an award this evening. Arabli Chanel Kwena Muleji FM. Okay, Kwena is not there. We'll try to get Kwena again. Can we, in the meantime, go back to those questions and those, yeah.
All right. The questions from Oleboheng in Kimberley. He's asking about what do we do to educate people in places like Kimberley and like. we're doing this campaign for them. We're doing it for them because we know if we go on commercial radios, they wouldn't get anything out of it. So we had to spread the money to make sure that we reach them wherever they are as far as possible. However, what he needs to understand is that as the Treasury, we talk to them about things that we are running from our side. The provincial treasuries in their provinces, they need to follow up on these issues. And every department, they are supposed to have a supplier day where they can build up on these issues. So if there's a supplier day in any of the departments nearby, he needs to attend those, because we just one department in Gauteng. If we're to go through all the provinces, all the municipalities with such a small team, it just it's not that feasible. So we do this through radio so that people can touch base with us. We send them notices through the CSD to say, we're going to have this for you, make sure you listen. If they want to query further, what we will do, the script that we have, the information that we shared with them, we're going to share it with the provincial treasuries. We're going to put it on the CSD website so that they can access it and just look at it whenever they can.
All right. Before we move on to those other questions, I'm just seeing here, they're saying France is back. I don't want to lose France. Can we take France very quickly? France, good evening to you.
How are you?
I'm good, and you, sir?
France again from Matala.
Yeah.
I'd like to know if maybe you can able to help us. We, the starters, how is it that if maybe you can able to have the tenders from 1,000 to 20 or 50,000 for the starters only? Because I can have 4 years without having anything, but I'm still the starter. You know what I'm trying to say?
Right.
So because we keep on, submitting, we are submitting to get something.
Right.
But at the end of the day, or at the end of the year, we find that I lost about 2,000 to 3,000 rand. Submitting only without even getting a tender of 10,000 or 20,000. So we know that the one for the millions, you will never go for the one of 20,000 or 30,000. So it's for the starters only.
All right.
Please.
France, you're talking about starters there, the triple PFA, something that we're going to be talking about now shortly. So listen in. I think that's going to answer partly your question there. So France, keep on listening. We're definitely going to answer that one there. Yeah. But let me take... the
other one that I said before,
right.
It's not the government that's selling quotation. It's the suppliers. It's our suppliers that are selling the quotation. But for 500, 600 is too much.
All right.
You know what I'm trying to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, France. Appreciate it. Partco Takalani FM. Takalani producers who we are going to give out the awards, and they kind of getting up as well. Here's Partco there from Takalani FM. Partco.
All right. Nemibuzo nje mibini mina. Umbuzo wami oqala ne ngifuna ukuqonda kuba if kukhethiwe aba bantu aba qualify for that tender bayi5 ne, and then ufuna ukuthi aba bayi4 aba comply, and then lo website uyo comply nayo ne une low price yakhe ayibekileyo ukuthi uyalin order ukuthi akwazi wina no tender. If ever uyayiwina, ingaba ke ngoku eyiphi role i-department ethi idlala in order ukuthi lo muntu le low price abe assisted okanye ayiwine that tender. Umbuzo wami wokugqibela ukuthi intoni umsebenzi we-BEC zikangako karabo ziyithunje kuphela zona la Takalani Radio.
Thank you so much. Partco calling all the way from Takalani Community Radio. Tabiso from Malaysia is back again. Tabiso. Tabs.
Carlo G.
Delocha.
Hey, lo gona.
Rona puchal nairi.
Puchwa ka e bile gore na phapano magareng ga triple BEE ya magala goba ye go thego ke sone le ya go dira ke di chartered accountant e ka ba le gore phapano ya tsona e go kae?
Okay, Emma, phapano between triple BEE
ya magala ye bitswa go sone le ya go.
Okay, I think we lost him, but did we capture that? Okay, Merozu we capture really. No worries about that one. Let's go to the questions. Let's start with this one here, Partco, because nearly complicated a little bit in terms of language as well. When my guests were like, "Hey, what is going on?" Okay, all right. Let's. Okay, we'll go back to let me not keep Kwena waiting. Let's take Kwena, and then we'll go back to Patko's question, and we'll work our way all the way back to those other questions. Kwena, very quickly, what is your question? Kwena? Okay, I'm being told to hold. Can we answer those quickly? Let's start with this one here, Patko. Patko wants to know if a selection of 5 service providers has been done, all right? And then out of the 5, the 4 are non-compliant. The 1 is. So because 5 was needed, but now only 1 is there, how can the 1 be assisted?
Okay. It depends on how we buy. If we're saying we're going for RFQs, that's quotations, and we pull out 4 or 5, and the 4 are non-compliant, we have to get another 4 to replace those ones.
Right.
If we are doing an open competitive bidding, usually the compliance issues are in the beginning, where they call it administrative requirements. So if it all the 4 falls away, then the tender is non-responsive because you can't compete on your own in a tender.
Right. In competitive bidding.
Yes. So there needs to be somebody that you compete with.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Kwena is back. Kwena?
Hello.
Yes, Kwena, what is your question?
La tshega ke gore na ke ka baka la eng re wena le di tender re swantse re attended the briefing.
Okay. Very simple and straight to the point. Thank you so much, Quinn. Appreciate it. All right, let's start with this one and we'll work our way backwards. Why do we have to go for briefings? I mean...
Okay. Briefing, usually it happens when the specification is too technical. So they need to break it down for the suppliers to understand what do we mean by this, what do we mean by that. So usually it becomes compulsory whether there's technical specifications. For instance, if you are new into the tender business, say in construction, they might put certain terms there that you don't understand. So it is important to attend a compulsory briefing session so that they can break it down for you. You can ask questions and know when you leave that, oh, this is what they want. Am I able to do it? Should I proceed and submit my tender or not? So it's just to explain to people what do we need from you exactly. Right. Because in government we write in some strange English that some people might not understand.
Okay. All right. And then there was a question about BEE from Patko.
What did Patko say was the role of BEE? Okay. Oh, the sworn affidavit and
there's two things. We're not sure whether he said the BEC or the BEE.
Right. Okay. Can we try to get him back if we can? Try to get Patko back.
I think you should answer this.
Let's go for that one. The other one.
The Tabiso.
Yes.
The Tabiso one. Okay. Tabiso. The DTI now allows service providers to submit a sworn affidavit if they are what do you call it? No, if they are EMEs, small companies, yes, to submit the sworn affidavit. And then the role of that is for you to get points. If the tender is awarded and it's below, the value is below $1 million, you get 20 points for your level, your BE level, status level, yes. And if the tender is above $1 million, you get 10 points for that. So your points for price and your points for BE will be added together to determine who should be awarded the tender.
All right. All right, let's take the last caller quickly. And what I would like us to do is to talk about the triple PFA and maybe to give explanations to the two methods, which is the request for proposal and the request for information.
And unsolicited bidding.
Yep. Okay, very quickly, Maureen, you calling from Kimberley. What is your question? And we're gonna go into that content. Maureen?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
My question is, how can government perhaps assist us, or how can government perhaps give us guidelines on this tender scheme? Because in January, I got an invite to tender for sprayers for the Department of Agriculture. But when I went back and to go for funding, I was advised by the lady at FIFA to check the authenticity of the document itself. And when I called Agriculture Department National Office, I was told that was a scam. So how can the government perhaps assist us in that regard to clarify or to identify what is a scam and what's not a scam?
All right. Maureen, let me just ask you one question. What have you registered for on the CSD?
I have registered as a PTY.
No, for the commodities, what are you selling?
I'm selling, like I'm in cleaning and catering business.
Okay. Immediately when you get an RFQ that steps out of those boundaries, then clearly it cannot be from government. Because that one that you're talking about is pesticides. It cannot go with catering and cleaning.
All right. I tell you what we're going to do, Maureen, and just taking a look at time. Can we give her a call back after the show?
We will call her.
Maureen, we'll give you a call back and we'll explain in detail exactly what is going on about that, and we'll try to help you on that regard. But what I would like us to do very quickly, let's touch on the three methods of buying, just to explain them. But more importantly, the triple PFA, or maybe should we start with the triple PFA?
Okay, let me start with the triple PFA. It talks to the SONA, because we have previously asked our listeners to listen to the SONA. In the SONA, the president talked about the 30% that we need to buy from emerging businesses, certain designated groups it's black people companies that are owned 51% or more, businesses that are owned by women who are black, youth that are black, people living with disabilities, amongst others. So they need to have a 51% ownership. So that 30%, when we buy in government, it simply means where it is feasible, we need to subcontract that 30% to those groups. When I say when it is feasible, we're saying we need to do research as government to make sure that if we are targeting these groups of people for certain skills, those skills do exist within those businesses. Because it wouldn't make sense for us to say we are going to target black youth that can supply engineering skills in an area where you have a retirement village, so to say, and where do you find the youth? That's the first thing. So government needs to do thorough research on the CSD. Suppliers will be notified in the shortest term to say, go onto your CSD, update your ownership status to tell us whether you are 51% ownership or whether less or more. Then they will get notification from us to say, log in and update your ownership percentages. Also, the one thing that is very, very important, because we hear most suppliers saying businesses are given to people from far away, they need to update their location. We need to know that there is somebody in that municipality if we want to target that group of companies. So they need to really go and update that information. The other one that will be covered on the CSD, I think, on the SONA and the triple PFA is the emerging businesses, right? Some of them we know that they don't have the skills. So there will be tenders like the one we talked about of lawn mowing. Those ones, they have been there, the rules have been there. Is that, like I said, our practitioners, some of them are not so savvy with supply chain, where you just assess a person on a company based on capacity and the price, because there isn't much risk in that particular area. So when we say we're going to renovate a school, those emerging businesses that have never done work before, we can target them and say we put in this tender for them only. So it is possible with the regulations, it is possible that we can open those doors for them.
Talking about a big window of opportunities on that regard.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We've got about 5 minutes to go. In 5 minutes, we've got about 5 minutes to go. In 5 minutes, we're going to be wrapping it up. But before we do that, let's touch on the three modes of buying very quickly. I'll tell you why, because we've got another program that's going to be linked up from Cape Town, and it's for the Health Practitioners Council of South Africa. So my colleague in Cape Town is standing by for that. So the three modes of buying. Let's start with the RFP.
Thanks, Karabo. The request for proposal, I should indicate that not all the tenders, when they are advertised, require to be evaluated on a proposal submitted. Sometimes you can only compare the prices and award. But sometimes, especially with services, you need to determine the capacity of the service provider. You request the service provider to submit a proposal to indicate how they are going to execute a project. Like, for instance, they are going to indicate the timelines, the resources allocated, and stuff like that. And that information will be evaluated to determine the capacity of the service provider. So that is done by the BEC, by the Bid Evaluation Committee. And when that is done, that information or the points that are allocated to service providers is not used to determine who should be awarded the tender. Just that only check capacity and capability of the service provider. The request for information is when the institution need information on a particular service. They will advertise the request for information, and that is not for the purpose of awarding a tender. They just want information. They just want to gather information.
Like research,
yes.
for instance.
Yes, as research, yes. So unsolicited bid is when the service provider or whoever identify that, okay, there's a problem in government and I have a solution, and they do research and they approach that particular a department or entity to say, I've got a solution for your problem. And the institutions are not obliged to accept your proposal. Yes, that is unsolicited bid. It's not like you advertise a tender, but you are approached by a service provider to say, okay, I've got a solution. I know you have got a problem, and I've got a solution to your problem. Yes.
Right. Listeners are very happy. It's been a long journey, a fruitful one, a very informative one for that matter. We've just had a call from Takalani FM. They say, look, you guys are doing an absolutely amazing job, and we thank you for that. All right. In wrapping up, let me just say thank you to you guys, but is there anything that you would like to highlight? We've got about 1 minute to do that, so 30 seconds each.
In 1 minute, the budget speech is on the 22nd of February. Just watch to see and hear what the Minister of Finance is saying, where the money is going this year. What are we funding?
Right. Okay, Rose?
Thanks, Karabo. We're hoping that our listeners got something from this campaign, and we expect that at least they will engage us if there's anything that they want us to assist with.
Right. Contact details if they need to get a hold of you, website addresses and so forth. Have you got?
The website address is OCPO. I don't even know. I don't know my website. I never go into it. Let me give them my number: 012-406-9088.
406.
406.
Yep.
90.
88.
Yep.
So there we go.
The code is 012.
Yeah.
It's Pretoria.
That's it. All right. That's the voice of Rakgadi Motseto, Chief Director, Stakeholders and Client Support, coming from the Department coming from the National Treasury. To be specific, the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer, the OCPO, as well as Meros Matlaole, Director of Supply Chain Management, Governance, Monitoring and Compliance. Thank you so much for all of this.
Very excited.
Let it come back again.